Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of the Rush Hour podcast. I have a very specific video right now coming to you before I get to the afternoon rush hour, which is, of course, as you can see by the title, to talk about my interview of Taylor Lorenz. She's an American journalist who lives here in Los Angeles, and I'm visiting Los Angeles. The interview came about in a really random and organic way, and I'll walk you guys through that. I'll walk you through how Taylor made this article and sort of included me, sort of didn't, but I'm not the real point of the story. I'm looking forward to showcasing the ability for two people to have a sensible conversation. That's what's going to happen today. Through hell or high water, it's going to happen. And I think Taylor will deliver that. I wouldn't do the interview if I felt like it wouldn't be in good faith. The conversation has been around Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, the coverage we have made ad nauseum, some would say, regarding Blake's claims of harassment to Justin Baldoni, the claims that he smeared her with his crisis reporting and possible astroturfing and getting the whole media system against her. She hires crisis PR, all that, right? So how do you untangle this whole mess? Well, we use pop culture stories as a sort of reference point, a sample size for greater cultural issues. I don't mean to make a giant case about how this channel is forcing change and this and that. No, we just talk about what's out there. This is essentially the water cooler conversation with a little bit of deeper thinking, right? We try to just go, well, how's everyone feeling? What's the end goal with all of this? So I'd be remiss if I didn't try to spend the 20 or 30 minutes I'll get with Taylor asking really informative questions, not trying to dunk. Dunking is what's done online when you tweet at people, and I'll explain how I'm part of that problem. Even though I don't really use Twitter that much, I have been in the pig pen of it all. I try to make my content in my videos as if the person I'm speaking of will watch, and for that reason, I try to have as much good faith conversation as possible. And again, I'm not always good at that. I try to do that. And then, oh boy, I tell you what, every once in a while, the comedian in me just wants to dunk. And I get on my high horse and this and that. We've seen it happen, right? So let's jump over to our picture-in-picture here and go to the thumbnail in question. So here's how it all started. Let's just go to how it started. And I'm making this video in part to let you guys let me know what I should ask Taylor. I'll try to combine several of your questions or try to get the tone of what you guys think you might want help with here. So people that follow the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively case are across all political spectrum. I would say there is sort of a resurgence of right-wing influencers that exist. They do have there is a big media landscape from Prager University to Candace Owens to Ben Shapiro of sort of being on. I wouldn't say it's like unionized, but there is a collective thought of that side, the right versus the left. I try to be more nuanced because I have family that's on the right and I have an audience that's on the right, along with on the left. It's not just a flat left versus right. It's way more three-dimensional. And my claim here, my hope, my hypothesis with Taylor is that we'll be able to have a conversation where we don't eat away at each other based on all of the tiny specifics of what we differ on, but we can find ways that we agree on things and come from there. So she writes this article, Lively vs. Baldoni, how right-wing influencers are weaponizing the fight to take down #MeToo. I don't even necessarily agree with her article, I shouldn't say I don't necessarily disagree with her article. There will be right-wing influencers that will say, see, here's a case where a woman may have lied, so therefore you can't trust the Me Too movement. And I look at batting average, right? I go, yeah, when cases like this get to pop culture, when it's Johnny Depp, when it's Lively Baldoni, these are huge stories that come around once every few years. Most cases, the woman who has a claim of DV against her husband, most cases, the issue that people have a claim against are credible. Because in most cases, people don't lie. And you might say, but Dave, what about this? Sure. Whether that's 1% or 5 or 10, I don't know the number. But in most cases, people will tell the truth. It's in cases where there's other motivations, whether it be a millionaire, a wide receiver for the 49ers who just got an $80 million contract. He's got a bunch of people in his DMs. Maybe he chooses to get a little silly, have fun, and then he's got some weird accusation against him. That happens. It's more targeted, though, when it does. And this may be that case where Blake Lively's claims don't live up in court, and we need to, really break down, do we throw out Justin Baldoni in the process? So my general argument, and again, maybe I've said different things, but I'm trying to boil it down. My general argument with Taylor Lorenz is, why was I included in this when my name wasn't mentioned? And again, I've said this before, but I'm bringing it up again just to say these are the types of questions that are not going to take a long time to answer because it's not the real crux of the whole conversation. But you have this guy, DeFranco, he's a big YouTuber, boosted a far-right influencer in his coverage. What does that even mean? What does boosted mean? Can we talk about, so like here I am a progressive commentator, a comedian who, considers himself progressive. It doesn't mean I shame a bunch of issues that are right-leaning or this and that. I just think the best way to fix the economy is to tax the ultra-wealthy and try to provide a better middle class for people, and how I see that happening, I've laid out before, right? So there are people that will argue cultural issues more, and I say, look, I'd love to argue every cultural issue. My dad was a veteran. A lot of veterans are losing their jobs due to the DEI issues. I just think those aren't the types of issues that are going to win the next election. The ones that will are putting together a real framework for helping out everyday Americans through healthcare and very simple things like that. Again, it doesn't mean I don't believe in those things. I just think we sometimes get stuck in these culture war issues and lose a greater conversation. So here I am included in this article. Again, not to beat a dead horse. My name's not credited, but partly I lose my argument because Taylor Lorenz then sees me as, I get probably a D-bag. I'm putting words in her mouth, but she probably sees me as some douche who is just railing about things, and like I have like a lot of like white male privilege, and I'll ask her, did you prejudge me? Which is fine. That's what we do, right? But here I am reacting to Candace Owens, and there's been things in this case that I agree with her. And I think part of my critical thinking skills is like, there are things I'll agree with people on that are on the right. I agree with Candace Owens that Mahmoud Kahil shouldn't have been deported. I agree with her on certain things, on free speech issues and stuff like that. And when we all stick to just completely being on one side versus the other, we lose the nuance to have conversations. Maybe the government did go too far with vaccine mandates and things. We should be able to talk about that without going, oh, that must mean you're on that side versus this side. It actually silences us. So that was kind of my whole argument. So I tweeted at Taylor. I said, hey, a friendly progressive here. I saw my YouTube art was used in a piece about right-wing commentators covering Blake versus Justin. Could you give me thumbnail credit or also specify that I'm not a conservative YouTuber? And again, when that didn't happen, and I get it, like she writes an article, she's busy with her life. I get it. A couple of days go by. I honestly don't really care much about it. I just think if her article takes off, it would be nice if people could see my face, then Google my name and realize I'm sort of being used to push her point, even though I would be contrary to her point, which is that, yes, there are a lot of right-wing content creators covering this, but there's a lot of left-wing people too. And people just don't want to be put in that box when it's really not a political conversation, right? It's not a political conversation. It's really like a workplace class issue conversation, really. So someone responded, sorry, Dave, leftists aren't allowed to stray from the approved narratives and talking points. No common sense or critical thinking allowed either. Surely you knew the rules. Now you're stuck with us. So what happens is people get canceled from the left. Call that what you want. They'll get outed or exposed, or they won't have the same opinions on Israel versus Palestine or Israel. They'll have a different take, and then all of a sudden they're banished. And then the right's like, hey, come with us. Those people are for censorship or whatever the case may be. And you could argue against, censorship is an issue we have on both sides of the aisle, of course. But so anyway, the point is, my response to this is where I veered off of course from my core values. I said, just because a wacko thinks I'm a conservative doesn't change my mission. I promise I won't lump all people into a corner the way she does. Many fine progressive news channels don't play this culture war game. And that's where I go, I'm giving her the ammunition to see me as someone who's calling her out, even when I am thinking that she's making this a culture war issue when it's not, even though it is a culturally relevant issue. It's not about Me Too. Her response, I literally never said you were conservative. If you read the story, you'll see that it's talking about how liberal influencers such as yourself unwittingly feed these misogynistic hate campaigns. But I guess it's easier to lie about my article than engage with what I actually wrote. And I said, how am I lying? This is where it gets murky. Let's tone it down. I came to you in a very friendly manner. And credit to Taylor, because I knew she had this receipt. She goes, and then she highlights what I said. And I go, yeah, you're right. You're right. That was a dick thing to say. I need to treat Taylor as somebody who in this present moment is willing to have this exchange and not like what she thought about Depp v. Heard, how she treated someone in the past. Like, it's a chance to have a conversation. So it goes from there. And I got no ego in the game. I don't want to play the dunking game. It's just it's a lose-lose for everybody. I said, my apologies, Taylor. Let's start over. And then maybe there's comments where she said, let me come on let's chat. And I'm like, absolutely. I want these conversations. So we're going to chat today. We're going to have a chat this afternoon. I'm very much looking forward to it. It's serendipitous that I happen to be in Los Angeles and she lives in an area I'm very excited to go to have a nice conversation. I got my lav mics, my GoPro camera. We will not edit a thing. Not a thing. You can see the full conversation. She can try, and I don't think she will, but she can try to dunk on me because it's not about that to me. It's not about, well, I got you here. It's like, we'll spend a few minutes on Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni. I don't disagree with her on some of the points that this type of conversation is a feeding ground for the algorithm to get on it, to talk about it. It is cultural. So it is a feeding ground to discuss these things. And with that, you'll have channels like Candace Owens who are like super clean video, highly produced content. And I just think Candace got a lot right. And if I'm going to call balls and strikes, I want to be fair and call balls and strikes, even if someone's at the plate that I don't like, even if it's my arch enemy. I find nothing better. You guys know, like when I beef with like Nick Viall, I find nothing better than to say, hey, he's got a good business plan. He has a good take. I'll give credit where it's due. So that way, when you know something's not due, I will also respond with that. Now, you might be hearing this, but my voice is gone. I did 5 podcasts yesterday. Here's my chat with Heather McDonald. It's doing very well online. It's called Blake Lively Apology Predictions, the Juicy Scoop podcast. So do me a favor. Go check that out. Leave nice comments on there on Heather's Instagram or send her a DM. Hey, we loved having you. I loved your chat with Dave. She already told me she'd have me back, but I want to show that we've got a voice in a community that has a pretty high demand. I know it doesn't sit well with everyone. People will respond and say, Dave, you're going to go talk to Taylor. She's going to misconstrue what you're saying. I don't have a problem with someone else interpreting my thoughts as long as I have the source material. There will be no dunking if I air the thing myself. So someone said, don't engage. I've seen it time and again with this reporter. She decontextualizes, omits, misleads, and stealth edits her poorly written articles. She will absolutely misrepresent you. Well, my response to that is, she's coming on my channel. So we'll have the conversation. I think it'll be a really, really good conversation. I actually prefer having conversations with people I might disagree with on certain topics. I think it really can help us find out what we do agree on, find out what the greater issues are. And it is a place of privilege when someone, like if there's a white person that sees a black person talking about a race issue and you go, oh, you always got to make it about race. It's a privilege for the white person to not have to worry about race, right? They can walk through a 7-Eleven and not feel followed around and not feel that they didn't get that loan approved because of their skin color or whatever the case might be that someone who has to deal with race in our country has to deal with, microaggressions or actual aggressions, right? And with that said, I want to be open. And I truly mean this. I want to be open to I was going to call her Taylor Swift. I'm interviewing Taylor Swift today. I want to be open to Taylor Lorenz's article here because she obviously comes to this story from a place that I don't. I am privileged in the sense that I don't have to walk down the street and go into a dark parking lot and worry about my safety. I don't have to worry about that. That is not something I think about. That my wife, when we lived in, we used to live between Silver Lake and Koreatown in this area, and it could get pretty dodgy at night. There's homeless people and there are drug addictions and mental health issues, and it could get very dodgy. and my wife would come home from work. She was my girlfriend at the time, and I would have to go. I would have to go get her out of her car, And that's the reality of living in a big cities. People, have to worry about getting pushed onto subways and things like that. There's a lot of mental health issues that are attracted to city culture because that's where they can get drugs and live a lifestyle that can afford them the chance to feed that addiction, which I am so compassionate about, but you still have to be worried about the results of that, right? So I say that because through the empathy I've received in dealing with my wife in the predatory industry she comes from, modeling in Hollywood, I do get a glimpse into how women in different cases aren't treated the same way as men are. I want to know about Taylor Swift. I called her Taylor Swift again. I want to know about Taylor Lorenz and the stalking and that she's had to deal with. And I want to know about the vitriol that had been sent her way. And rather see someone become a martyr of their own and think that everyone that disagrees with her is a bad guy, I want to present a good faith conversation about, all right, look, I can't control the wackadoodles online. Everything you do, the wombat girl from, in Australia is dealing with death threats. Like, you get death threats from from having any opinion about anything. I can't control that, and I don't mean to inflame that. I want to talk to Taylor Lorenz in good faith. Now, in the off chance, probably a 5% chance that it's not a good faith convo and she just comes there to dunk on me, then that's the conversation you guys are going to see, and then you can have your opinion solidified. I would bet my bottom dollar it'll be a good conversation. We ask some tough questions. We leave with a handshake, and we can go on from there. And then if there's places where we disagree, she's got a pretty good platform, right? She has 300,000+ on Twitter, 150,000 on Instagram, whatever she's got on Substack and all the podcasts. So I'd rather have a business connection with someone like her and be willing to have conversations in the future when things come up versus have someone I've burnt bridges with that we just try to dunk on each other online. And the big issue with Twitter is so many people will comment so many things. Then you respond to somebody's comment and you don't even go through the comments first, second, and third in chronological order. It just becomes blindly fighting with a bunch of haymakers, and it's not good conversation. Not good conversation. So I'm glad we're taking it off Twitter. I'm glad we'll have it in real time, and you guys will be privy to that. My thought is that I'll be releasing it Thursday morning because I have a red-eye flight Wednesday night. So this will actually help me out a lot to have a morning video and podcast that is already shot. So we'll have to see. If the interview doesn't happen for some reason, I'll let you guys know too. But I fully believe it'll happen because we're both ambitious and ready to start the process. I already know my first question. It'll get a laugh. It'll be fine. And again, I come from the comedy world where I do jokes in Tennessee or Boston or California, and I've done them in front of church crowds, right-leaning crowds, super left. I just did the Democratic Party fundraiser. So I talk to people all over. I have this belief, people will call me naive. I have this belief that a large majority of our country is on the same page with certain things. I truly believe that. And when we can stop exposing the differences and sort of boil things down to how we are all different, right? Like you could take a piece of human flesh and you could pick it apart to the molecular level. Well, there's carbon and there's this and that, and then you could see how it's all different. But in the end, all of that flesh, we all have that same DNA and we all want the same thing. We want security. We want community. We want all these things. Social media, which is the most, the most antisocial thing we've ever created, right? Social media is something that boils down to the scientific. Are you on the left or are you on the right? Which side? And it's got to be a better conversation than that moving forward. We are literally at a crossroads in our country. A conversation of the binary becomes a civil war. Some say we're already there culturally, and I'll die on the battleground saying it doesn't have to be this way. We'll come back with the Rush Hour podcast this afternoon. We got and by the way, to piggyback on this conversation right now, the next one will involve another reporter being exposed. And again, it's not all mainstream media versus content creators. That's another binary we can get rid of. Taylor Lorenz is now a content creator, and she doesn't work for mainstream. And maybe she'll be willing to say how mainstream gets it wrong and how content creators and independent journalists can do a better job to incorporate the good, but also ditch the bad. we'll have to see how it goes. We'll see you then. I'm Dave Neal. We'll be right back.